My name is Arnould Nazarian. I'm French. I live in the suburbs of Paris. I'm interested since less than 10 years in a very rare fruit tree, which is named Sorbus Domestica, and you are listening to Cider Chat.
Hello and welcome to Cider Chat. My name is Rio Windcolor, and I am the producer and cider MC of this weekly podcast, where we speak with makers, cider enthusiasts, and folks within the cider trade from around the world. We're brought in to this year episode 219 by Arnould Nazarian. He lives in Paris and happens to be a huge Sorbus Domestica enthusiast. And that is one heck of a niche within the niche of Pommes enthusiast. Yes, Sorbus Domestica is just one of the many names. And well, that's actually its very scientific name, if you will. But depending on where you are in the world, it's going to probably have a different name. And it is all around the world, not so much in North America, but in other main cider-making regions of the world. And it's a super fascinating tree, and his enthusiasm, I think, is contagious, and I hope that it really encourages you to check out this magnificent tree, which happens to also be one of the largest of all the Pommes. Now, imagine if you've been to Normandy or England and seen some really ancient pear trees. Shoot, imagine if you've gone to Kazakhstan and seen like those very old, like 300-year-old apple trees there that very few people have seen. They might kind of like spread out horizontally where pear trees go vertically. Well, for Sorbus Domestica, it goes vertically really high and also vertically really low. And we're going to be talking about that. It is considered kind of like the king of, well, at least in my mind, the king of all the Pommes in its size. And also what it brings. One of the most common names is the service tree. And that's because it's kind of like, almost like a life-giving tree in all the different ways that it's given back and has helped both civilization move forward. Pretty darn fascinating. So get your glass ready, and we'll be shooting to that really shortly. This is a little bit of a longer episode. And mind you, I have already taken off a bit that has gone and to be posted to the Cider Chat Patreon page. So a really cool episode ahead, and I hope that it finds you well wherever you are out there in the world during this very fascinating spring of 2020. All right, I'm going to take a little pause here. I'll be right back and give you another little update before we go to our featured chat with Arnould in France.
Walking through the orchards, dancing in the streets, smelling all the blossoms, kicking up our feet.
While I was here producing this week's podcast, I actually got a little tweet come across my phone, and it was none other than Albert Johnson of Ross Cider and Perry Company based in Ross-on-Wye in the UK, writing out those actual words that my cousin Jay and I are singing there, walking in the orchard. And I haven't been playing that tune too much because, well, I've been a little sad, a little kind of like befuddled like all of us about this stinking coronavirus stuff that's keeping us in. But the truth is, right now is the time that I could go out and dance in my street and nobody be kind of like rushing at me with a car and going, "What are you doing out there, you crazy lady?" You could do it. And I don't know, somehow I just kind of keep on being hopeful. And part of that hopeful was that little tweet connection that I had with Albert. He posted a couple photos there, and one was of the Perry pears at the Ross Cider farm in full bloom. I mean, this is the season right now. It's blooming from the California coastline all around the world. in the Northern Hemisphere. It's super exciting. And for friends down in the Southern Hemisphere, we know where you are right now. It's a different seasonal change. You're starting to head into winter. And that's a fun time too, isn't it? It's really pretty exciting. I like all the seasons, really. But I'm going to stay in the apple blossom season and the pear blossom season and the Sorbus Domestica season right now. All those good Pommes. And just kind of note that that's what's going on there. It also made me think and want to remind you before we go further that there is an England cider tour that I have out in the world. You could sign up now, and we're just kind of holding out some good faith that we could make it to England over the first weekend of September. So it's the 1st through the 6th of September. Just a freaking fantastic trip, going to Somerset and Herefordshire, making stops with Pilton Cider, and we're going to be going to Hex Cider House and hanging out in Bristol, checking that scene out. There's all this like great cider stuff, new cider bar happening there. Then making our way up to some giant pear trees up in Herefordshire, checking out some cool castles, a little cheese shop, and seeing all the amazing people at the Ross Cider Fest. So where I just saw those photos today from Albert, we're going to be going there. And that is my goal, and I like to keep the eye on the prize. And if you're sitting there kind of going, man, it's just like crappy time right now, I want you to kind of shake a leg, get off that stoop, and, do the hokey pokey and turn yourself around, because that's what it's all about. I also want to remind you that there's some amazing episodes up. A fun one that I just posted recently is called The Omnia Era of Cider. It's all about some artwork that happened, and it's a special edition, just straight up just talking about Pommes in art, which is a particular fascination I have. And then some other conversations coming up recently last week with Fieldbird Cider, Ryan Monkman talking about the scene up in Ontario. Found out that the Canadians, they get $2,000 a month from the government while they're in quarantine, which from here, man, feeling kind of jealous about that. Anyways, talking about the Canadians, there's going to be an upcoming episode with Ryan Monkman. I've already posted some of the specs on that, and that is where you could ask Ryan any kind of cider making question, and we'll be hooking up with him pretty soon and having a special episode called Ask Ryan. And he is just he's just a treasure trove of good cheer, really like one of those like really smartest people you kind of know. And I just adore him and his family and the whole thing that they're doing up there at Prince Edward County in Ontario. So if you have a question for cider making, do send it my way. Send it to ria@ciderchat.com. And last but not least, I'd like to let you know that there are some new, fresh T-shirt designs on the Cider Chat TeePublic page. And one says, "Keep calm, drink cider." There's 2 different versions of that. And there's another one all about Sorbus Domestica. And you can check that out too. And some little revisions. So just Google TeePublic. That's TEE Public Cider Chat. And you can see a little Cider Chat swag store. And of course, this podcast gets kicked back from all the T-shirts that you buy. Probably get like 50 cents a T-shirt or something like that. But hey, every penny counts, just like every drop in your glass. So don't let it get empty. Fill it up now, because next up we're going to be going to this main chat with Arnold. It's just fascinating. Love this guy. And do go to the show notes if you want to get some more specs on what's happening there for this particular tree within the Pomme family called Sorbus Domestica. This podcast has helped connect me to people worldwide who have a similar affection like I do to all things Pomme. Now, Arnould Nazarian, our guest on this week's chat, was in that kind of similar thread, in this case, via social media. I don't think he really knew anything about Cider Chat, the podcast, but we were following each other via Instagram. And I was noticing that he was posting about a very specific palm tree, which is called Sorbus Domestica. In some places, it's also known as the service tree. In fact, in many different countries, it has different names because what I found out from Arnold is when a tree or a plant or a certain product has a very specialized function that it offers, the community and the culture will often create its own name for it. So in different parts of the world, Sorbus Domestica will have different names. That's one thing to just kind of put in your back pocket as we get through this here chat, which is pretty darn fascinating. Arnold isn't a classical researcher in the university sense. He is, like me, an enthusiast for one specific niche. And in this case, it's Sorbus Domestica. In fact, you'll hear us kind of kidding around a little bit that I kind of consider him like the Pope of Sorbus Domestica, at least in France. And his affection for it and passion is just overflowing. The guy could talk nonstop on this topic. And we get right into it. And there's a lot to be learned. So you might want to go to the show notes and just see some of the key things that I was writing down as I am producing this here podcast for you today. And do know, if you are a patron of this here podcast, there will be an extended version of my conversation talking about Sorbus Domestica and its use in cider making, which is absolutely fascinating. So that'll be getting posted to the Cider Chat Patreon page. Another good reason to become a patron today. This recording took place at Cidrexpo in Normandy, France, and it was just by luck that Arnold traveled out from his home in Paris to come out to Caen, where the expo was being held, and I was able to have a nice long sit down and chat all about Sorbus Domestica, and also get to watch him roam around that expo trying to get other makers interested in this amazing palm. Because even though someone might be making cider for a really long time, they might not know the full attributes of Sorbus Domestica, not only as a product in terms of wood, but it also has an amazing fruit that offers to fermenters some really interesting and, I must say, documented properties for helping in the fermentation of both cider and wine. Its history is long and vast. Certain regions of the world, such as Spain and Germany, and definitely France. We're going to talk about just about all of that in the hope that you too might help this little known tree be discovered. Which means that it is now time to grab a glass and join this chat with Arnould Nazarian of Paris as we find out some of the common names that Sorbus Domestica is called in France.
North of France, Cormé. In the south of France, it's Sorb.
It can also be called the service tree or Sorb tree, and it can be found in Western, Central, Southern Europe, Northwest Africa, and Southwest Asia. And yes, it can also be found in North America. Next up, let's find out what ignited Arnold's passion for Sorbus Domestica.
Very strange. There is a train station in the suburb of Paris, which is named Achères Grand-Cormier. Okay? Achères is the name of the town. Grand-Cormier is the name of a big sorb tree. Okay? Grand-Cormier. Why? What is it?
Just in case you are on your hunt for Sorbus Domestica too, I put the full name of the train station in the show notes for this here episode 219. And you gotta admit, Grand-Cormier is a pretty cool name for a train station. At one time, it must have been decked throughout that area and in the town of Achères with these very stately trees that often are mistaken as oak. So the train station piqued his interest, but he couldn't necessarily rely on books for his research.
If you look in a paper book, you will not find as much as in internet.
And what he found out was
it is a fruit tree,
and it was known to the people of France, Germany, and northern Italy And these peasants, talking like way back in like the Middle Ages, knew something about Sorbus Domestica that we, in modern times, on a larger global level, are just rediscovering now. That this service tree, this sorb, could be used for
both wood and fruit. Wood is the heaviest wood that you can get in Europe. And the Sorbus Domestica is cut down and is still green. It can be heavier than water.
Because the wood of the sorb tree is so hard and so strong that early on in modern time it had some very specific applications, one of which was
mechanical devices.
Mechanical device would be, for instance,
two very important things were done with Sorbus Domestica wood as a first choice. The first one are teeth in gears in mills. Every single tooth on the big
wooden gear.
The wooden gear was in Sorbus Domestica wood, and I read somewhere that when you had gears made with such wood, they could last for 50 to 60 years. It was, of course, extremely important to European peasants to be able to bring the corn to the mills and to make flour. It was first done in history in Europe. It was the beginning of the superiority of the Europeans, the mechanics that they did in the Middle Ages, from the maybe 11th or 12th century. The Africans, the Chinese, the North Americans, the natives did not do things like this. The second very important device that they did with Sorbus Domestica wood, our ancestors, were the screws for wine and oil presses. The rest of the machine was made with oak.
Yes, oak. And what we do know about oak is that it has the properties of both checking and splintering off. The use of Sorbus Domestica in this type of application is, as Arnould says,
as a second example of how they could gain time to press the wine or oil, even more important,
or the olive oil,
was oil. Okay, yeah. And that was the first choice, Sorbus Domestica wood. They learned how to do mechanics with hardwood, and the first choice was Sorbus Domestica.
Wow.
So that made it so important. And then you had another application where they needed very hard wood and very fine grain. It's for printing presses. So they made letters. Yes, letters. With Sorbus Domestica wood. First choice again. Me, I'm more interested in fruit because I think fruit could be today relaunched. And that's what I try to do right now.
You are doing it.
I try. So it was 8 years ago. I needed 2 years to find my first tree. I dreamed about it for a few weeks before I found one in an arboretum, in a tree park. Okay.
In Paris?
It was in Normandy.
Oh, Normandy. Okay.
Normandy, Harcourt. The picture is even on internet. You can look at this tree.
I see a lot of your trees, so I will look for it.
And what is so interesting for me is it's not far away from where my mother lives, so I can go and visit them whenever I want. And 1986, the people in this arboretum did put a place with 50 Sorbus Domestica trees. Other trees, it's traditionally a place where new species of wood was tested to see if it's interesting. For example, in that place, they tested American black nuts. Okay, there are American black nuts trees, for example, or chestnut trees, but wild cherry tree, which is also interesting wood.
Yeah.
And they put Sorbus terminalis, 50 pieces, and Sorbus Domestica. So there we have a place where they are 40 years old, and they give lots of fruits now. Not all of them did develop equal to the neighbor, and it's very, very interesting. You see that they are asocial trees. They don't like to touch the neighbor.
Antisocial tree.
Antisocial tree. Yes, and that's why it's so difficult to find them. You find one or two here and there in the countryside. What I learned later, seeds to germinate, they must be eaten by a bird or by a rabbit first.
They won't germinate. It has to go through the intestine of these animals.
So that's why they are so rare. And you find one, maybe two, not more in a given place. Okay? Except they were cultivated. And they were cultivated in the past, that's true. So I looked at the trees first, measured them, looked at the fruits. I started to look at the fruits from the beginning because I was astonished there is such a big diversity. They look like small apples or small pears. And all of the colors of apples or pears, from green to brown to red to yellow, and the forms also, apple round to pear-shaped.
Is there different varieties of Sorbus Domestica? Is that why they have the different colors?
That's an interesting question. In fact, there were varieties in the 19th century and maybe before, but they are lost. And that's why maybe the ones that are in California today are so interesting. I will come to them later. No? Because I had a place where there are 50 trees. I saw how different they can be from one tree to the other. So I was astonished because they are so rare, even in Europe. I thought the second thing I could do for those trees is to try to germinate the seeds. But I didn't want to do it the natural way, okay?
You didn't want to have to eat them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, in fact, I tried it once, but...
I was thinking, that's...
it was not very...
pleasant.
No. I started to look, and there is a man in Germany, I speak German, at Germany, who began to look at those trees middle of the 70s. And he wrote a book, the year 2000. He has an impossible name, Vedic Kauschblecken von Schmeling. Vedic Kauschblecken von Schmeling. He wrote a book in German that's named Der Spierling. It's the German name of the...
Spierling,
yes. Der Spierling.
Spierling.
Spierling. Oh, it's difficult. Der Spierling. He wrote a book, it's 200 pages, and in that book he gives the recipe to get those seeds to germinate. Once you know it and you have some patience, it's possible. When you get the seeds from the fruits in October or November, you immediately must put them into sand, wet sand, moist sand, 100% sand, no ground.
Nothing else.
Into the fridge at 2 degrees Celsius, at the bottom of the fridge, or in the north behind your house if it's cold enough. Then you put them out in March, for example. They could have germinated already in the fridge, or they will germinate with 95% germination. If you put the seeds only into ground, into normal ground, they will all rot, except your ground is very sandy. There is an academic paper about this. Researcher in Prague, she noticed this, but she doesn't know why. 4 or 5 years old, this paper. And she did it with 8 years old seeds. That was so interesting. She got 95% germination.
How big are the seeds? Because they're small fruits to begin with.
They are like apple or pear. Exactly not exactly the same form, but more or less the same weight or the same dimension. I did this. I succeeded. I gave some young Sorbus Domesticas, maybe 15 centimeters for the, how do you say, 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch.
I remember seeing some of your photos. Yes.
Okay, you saw them. Then a miracle, and that was in May, something I discovered in the internet. When I looked at Sorbus Domestica in internet, it was associated with the term agroforestry. You know what it is, agroforestry?
agroforestry.
Agroforestry, with your accent, excuse me. Agroforestry.
Yeah.
Did you hear about this? Until the 60s, 1960s, 70s, there were trees everywhere in the countryside, even in where you cultivate, where they cultivated crop, or in where they kept animals.
Right.
Okay, and then most of those trees were they were taken down. Okay, because of the machinery, big machines. And then in the 1980s comes a young researcher, his name Christian Duprat in France. Christian Duprat. He is at INRA, Institut National de la Recherche Agronomique in Montpellier, south of France. As soon as he was hired, he told to everybody, we must replant trees where we do maize, corn, crop, etc., because it's good for the soils and it's good for biodiversity. Okay, it was in the 1980s. I think that he was so insistent with his hierarchy that he got money to do some research. Okay, the department, the region where he lives, bought a castle with 600 hectares. You will translate. It's a big land. Okay, with all sorts of cultures and vineyards. It's south of France. He got enough money to plant trees into this place. Okay, 1995. They planted 3,000 Sorbus Domestica there because they were looking for a tree that could live together with vines.
And on top of the hillside, where there may be rock ledges with cracks and crevices, but very little soil for a tree to root into. So the end goal was to hopefully find the right tree for farmers to plant. This research was done over the past 50 years. And just so you know, 600 hectoliters translates to nearly 1,500 acres, which is a pretty broad area to be planting trees in. Next up, we're going to hear Arnold talk about the diversity of trees that were planted during this research project.
So he tested cherry trees, oaks, Sorbus terminalis, Sorbus domestica, different trees.
Yeah.
And because, 10 years afterwards, 2005, that's very recent, this research. He proved if people put trees into their fields, they will, in the end, earn 30% more money than if they put trees into forests and cultivate their fields in the end. At the beginning, production will drop a little bit, but because of the value of woods, in the end, they would make 30% more money than to separate trees and cultivation. Okay,
That's fantastic.
and because Sorbus domestica was an approved species of tree for this, in nearly all the agroforestry projects that were launched since then, in the last 15 years, between 10 and 15% of the trees that were planted are Sorbus domestica. So if you have a big field with 500 trees, and you have 15% Sorbus domestica, you have 75 Sorbus domestica. For a tree which is nowadays very rare everywhere. This is a miracle.
It sounds pretty amazing to me. Do they require a lot of water?
No, and that's the interesting thing.
So they could grow on a rock ledge with very little soil. So
Yes.
it's kind of like a pine tree or conifer.
Exactly. They have very deep roots, very deep roots. That's another. It's not like apple trees who have
Or a
roots
pine tree. Yeah.
relatively flat. It is very important in a field where you cultivate crop just nearby. It's very important that the roots can go very deep. I read that those roots go to 6 or 8 meters into the earth.
Wow,
okay?
that's deep. That's deep.
Yeah,
That's
deep,
very
that's
deep.
deep.
I don't know many trees like that.
That's like oak or I think pear also. Pear trees also have deep roots.
8 meters translates to 26 feet. Imagine that taproot, 26 feet long. Now, I'm not sure about pear trees, though, having such a deep taproot. I don't really know that. I figure they go downwards around 9 feet or so, which is still very deep. But 8 meters, that's like having a whole other tree underground. It's like you have a tree up above ground and a tree underground. It's just crazy to think about that. Next, Arnould will share with us another wonderful attribute that can help farmers with the planting of Sorbus Domestica, and it is in regards to the leaves on these trees.
The leaves are very light. They are pinnate leaves. So a very light shadow. This is also very good for if you want to cultivate crop or fields around the trees. Okay, so now you find everywhere in France, nearly only in France, because he's a French researcher and he's well known in France. You find fields where you have on 2 or 3 kilometers alignments of trees. And what is so interesting for my Sorbus Domestica is that the fruits will be so easy to go and get in the bare fields in October and November, if they are paid well enough to the owner of those fields, of course.
Yeah, right.
Okay. So
do they grow really tall? How tall are they?
They can grow in forests. They can be forest
So
trees.
they would be tall if they're in the forest.
In forest, they can be very.
But are they more like an oak tree? Because they don't like touching other trees. So.
If you don't know the tree, if you cannot see the leaves, if you cannot see fruits on the ground, you have the feeling that it's an oak tree. Either in forests where they are very tall, or in the countryside where they are not so tall but larger. Okay, you have the. I was looking for such a tree. I knew that there was one in another arboretum in the east of Paris, and I saw a big tree in the middle of an empty field. Okay, and I said to me, that was the first time I was there. Okay, this is a beautiful oak, but I'm not looking for oaks. I'm looking for Sorbus Domestica. So I looked for maybe 2 hours. Until I came back to this tree, and on this tree there was a sign that it's the Sorbus Domestica. It's like an oak tree. This is more than 3 meters in girth, so more than 1 meter in diameter. More than 1 meter in diameter. This one.
Old tree. That giant sorb tree that Arnold's talking about, saying it's 1 meter in diameter, that translates to 3 feet. A 3-foot diameter tree is pretty darn big. Let's hear about the amount of fruit that it can produce.
It gives maybe 500, 600, 700 kilograms of fruits every year.
700 kilograms is over 1,500 pounds off of one tree.
That's so interesting with old Sorbus Domestica trees, when the fruits are big enough, because there are very small ones. When the fruits are maybe 15, 20 grams per fruit, then you can get
a lot of fruit.
There is a specialist in the Czech Republic. He's the second pope for Sorbus Domestica. He's in the Czech Republic.
Would you be the first pope? I have a feeling you are the first pope.
No.
Oh, I don't know. Well, you are certainly an enthusiast.
First pope is the German.
The researcher.
Kausch Blecken von Schmeling. Second one is Vitek. I don't know how he says his name. Vitek HRD Rusdustek. blah, blah. And there is one in Germany, a second one is the Vice Pope, and then I come afterwards.
Okay.
And there is even one who is more interested than me, or as interested as me, in east of France, and who started before me. He started in 2008, so maybe 5 years before me. Okay. No. He started to look at this 5 years before me. So agroforestry, that was the miracle of 2017. But there was a second miracle in 2017. No? I saw Eric Bordelais on the TV. And I saw he was with the king of patisserie, Pierre Hermé. Pierre Hermé is the top of pastry doer. Pierre Hermé, he is from Alsace, but he's known in the whole world. And there were two other chiefs around the table with Eric Bordelais. And Pierre Hermé said, I remember very well, but I never found the video again, the poirée of Eric Bordelais is the best that you can drink with my dessert. No? The best. So, okay, I thought, why not? Let's call him. I'm in a small association who tries to promote Sorbus Domestica. And we just wanted to relaunch the interest. It was June 2017. So I phoned him and I told Arnaud, you don't know me, but maybe you could be interested. No? And yes, he was interested. And yes, he came to our little...
Are you talking about the pastry chef?
No, I'm talking Eric Bordelais. Eric Bordelais.
Good.
I called him and he came. And we had different things made with sorbs on that day on the table. And when it was at the end, he said, "Okay, I'll try something. With this fruit." Okay, and I thought he would do maybe 50 liters. He would maybe go and try to get 100 kilograms. But in fact, he did much more. And you can still find his first year, the very first year for Cormé, which is 2017. For fruits which were ripe in 2017. It's that year that he puts on the label. And since then he continued. So now we are in the third year, second year, third year. It's not yet ready, but I think in a few days we will see on Instagram a new picture of the Cormé 2019. Okay, so what I can say, if you have a 2017 bottle, maybe you shouldn't drink it. You should keep it. Keep it.
And weigh and compare.
Yeah, maybe it could. Maybe in 50 years, it could be the bottle, empty bottle, will be more expensive than what was inside. Okay, because it's first year.
That's right.
Cormé was made in the past by on the countryside where there were Cormier, but most of the time it was sorbs put in a barrel with water and then fermentation. Okay, he did of course 100% juice of those fruits, and it's excellent. You cannot say it's cidre because we have law. Law says only apple and cidre.
Yeah, right, yeah.
But it's a cider. You tasted it, I think.
I have, yes, yeah. You give me a bottle that first year, yes.
I think apple cider, you cannot drink this with all the dishes. But I think Cormé you can drink with everything, from the beginning to the end of your because it's not you don't know in fact the taste of those fruits, and it's not as strong as apple in fact. No, it's more like champagne. And champagne, you know that you can drink from the beginning to the end of a gastronomic meal. Huh?
That's right. I love how Arnold brings us into his passion for Sorbus Domestica. He's got me over the moon for this tree. I mean, I'm growing it myself. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Considering all the amazing things about this tree.
Next November, we will have Day of the Cormier. No? The second one. First one was 2 years ago. Yes, and I hope that he will come. That would be excellent.
What happens on the day of the Cormé?
Alors, Day of the Cormier, hein?
Okay,
Not Cormé, not Cormé, Cormier. Everything
Cormier.
about Cormier, about Sorbus Domestica. Lots of people discuss. People can buy small trees, Cormé, of course, marmalade, lots of things.
It's fantastic.
Things made out of wood of Cormier, of course.
Is that happening in Paris?
It's happening next year. It's in November.
Oh.
It's happening, it's about 150 kilometers from Paris, in the countryside, in Sarthe. No? Where there are still lots of old Cormier.
So that's to the east?
That's to the west.
Oh, to the west, so coming in this direction.
Yeah,
okay.
it's already a Cider region.
Okay, all right.
Already a Cider region. Now, what I found out, and this is so important for the future of lots of people, I think, that I must really explain. As I speak German, when I was looking at Spierling, Sorbus Domestica, etc., you soon find that they do something named Spierling Apfelwein. Okay, Spierling Apfelwein. Apple wine with Sorbus Domestica juice inside, okay, in Germany. In the region of Frankfurt, only, people do not drink beer like everywhere else in Germany. They drink cider. A still cider. It's a wine made with apple juice, okay? And what they called Spierling or Spierling and it's cheap. It's maybe €2.50 a bottle of 1 liter, okay? That's what they drink when they eat traditionally. Huh?
Yeah, table wine.
Like we did drink in France, table wine, exactly. But the bottles where you can see Spierling Apfelwein, they are more expensive, double the price, about 5 to 6 euros a bottle of 1 liter. Okay, so it's considered high end of Apfelwein. Huh? So I saw this from the beginning, now because I speak German, and for many years, maybe 5 years, I thought, yes, it's because there is something with taste. It improves taste of cider. Okay, improves taste of cider. But it's not exactly this. It does change a little bit the taste. It makes it drier, okay, the cider. But it's not because of this that it's still considered high end. It's because of something they did before all the chemicals that we put into those beverages.
Yeah.
Okay? So, in fact, I understood when the Vice Pope of Germany, when I found something on internet written by Heiko Fischer, which is this Vice Pope about Sorbus Domestica in Germany. Wedigkaus-Blecken von Schmeling is a forestry, is interested by the timber, by the wood. He's interested by the fruit. Okay, Heiko Fischer is interested by the fruit. He lives near Frankfurt am Main. He's a pomologue. He's capable of to distinguish one apple sort
from another,
from many hundreds.
So we'd say a pomologist.
Pomologist, okay. Pomologue. We say in France, a pomologist. He's a pomologist, and of course, so he was born in 1942, and he, as a pomologist, he does his wine, his apple wine, okay, Apfelwein by himself, with his own apples. Okay?
Yes.
So he did it until 1994. There was a catastrophe. He did press 200 liters, okay, of apple juice, fermentation. Then he left it in the barrel until he could put it in bottles. And then when he looked at it, it changed. It got what we call in France maladie de la graisse, illness.
Illness, like
Illness.
a bacteria?
Yes, something happened with the bacteria. So that illness makes cider or also wine, grape wine. If you, it's like oil. Okay, when this bacteria has done its action on finished fermented juices, you get something which is like oil, okay, who is gras filant, we say in France. Okay, so but this is a forgotten illness. We say illness. This is a forgotten problem because since for about 150 years, people put sulfites. Sulfites.
Yes.
Into those beverages, and sulfites is kill everything. Those kill everything. So the problem is not today. The problem is forgotten. Okay, except when people try to do cider or wine without chemicals. And that's what happened to Heiko Fischer in 1994. He writes this on internet, in a document in internet.
94.
And in the same document, he wrote, after, of course, I told this story to the people I knew, I know in that countries where I live, around Frankfurt. And old people told him that if he had put a little bit of Sorb juice into his cider, that would not have happened. Okay? That would not have happened.
Wow.
Okay?
So what are the properties of the Sorb juice that...
He doesn't know.
It's the magic of it. It's the magic of the Sorbus Domestica.
Something magic.
Yes.
So I went and visited him 2 years ago. I went and visited him, and he explained to me how he does. So first, he has to use green sorbs that are not fully ripe. He goes at normally they fall from the tree between mid-September and until end of October. He climbs onto the trees. He's 77, 78 now, with a ladder to go and pick up green sorbs. Okay?
Green sorbs.
That are still on the tree.
Wow,
no?
Arnold. Wow.
And the juice of green sorb must be put into fermented juice.
But that'd be very early. That would be very early.
Very early.
Early for the juice. Like a lot of people aren't making cider early in September.
Yeah, that's a problem. Yeah, that was a problem that I asked myself.
I don't mean to interrupt you. Sorry.
So okay. So what he does?
You were saying so the green sorbs must be put into the juice.
No, wait a moment.
Sorry.
So what he does, he takes green sorbs, he presses them at end of August, okay, and it's still not the apples are still not ready at that time. And so he put, if he doesn't put anything into that juice, he said to me, within one night we would have jelly, okay, it would jellify. No?
The
juice, yes, the juice, okay. Because there are lots of I don't know what inside pectin, and you would end up with a jelly, not a juice. So you can buy a chemical, an enzyme, to stop the action of the pectins. So that's what he did, and until this year, I will tell you why afterwards. Maybe he has a new possibility now. And so he put with this pectin X enzyme, he puts the juice to the fridge. He doesn't. It stays good, okay, until the apples comes. He presses the apple, starts the fermentation, and only when the fermentation starts to decrease, when the first part of the fermentation is finished, he puts about 1% of this sorb juice into the already half fermented juice. And then something very special happens. Fermentation recovers again. He told me, if you want to do it, do not put the juice of the green sorb at the beginning of the fermentation, because you would have a hurricane in your barrique, and 80% of the aromas would
go up into the air.
Away.
Yeah, right.
So wait until the first part of the fermentation is finished. Okay, until the high point of the so it does fermentation does open fermentation, gives la mousse.
Open fermentation, mean open cover fermentation?
No, you have la mousse comes out when you drink beer. You have mousse.
The foam.
Yes, you have foam coming out, and about 6, 7, 10 days after the beginning of the fermentation, foam begins to slow down.
Yeah.
Okay, and only then you put your 1%, 1 liter to 100 liter, or 1.5 liter to 100 liter, depends on the years. No, and then your fermentation recovers. And if you have still too much sugar in your liquid, it goes away. And afterwards, your cider, which was not treated, is protected and cannot
grow those bacteria.
With these bacteria.
Yeah. Wow.
And I'm happy that I was here today, because I spoke about this with the microbiologists of the University of
There was
Caen.
a presentation on
Yes.
bacteria. Yes.
I spoke with them, and they are interested because they know this illness.
Of course they do.
Why they know? Because there is something which is a new miracle for my beloved fruits. People more and more say they are allergic to sulfites.
Yes.
Okay,
We hear this often.
so they want to drink natural wine, natural cider. But there is a problem. If you open the bottle and it's oil,
It goes ill. It goes ill. Yeah.
So maybe there is something to reinvent, because our ancestors did it. And how do I know this? First, because Heiko Fischer had the information from older people. He was 50 when it happened to him. So maybe people who were 80 in 1984. Okay?
Yeah. Makes
So
sense.
people who
Had a tradition.
who were born before World War One. Okay?
Right. Wow.
After World War One, lots of things changed in Europe.
yeah, of
So maybe
course.
people who had some rememberings of
they're gone.
that they are gone. And myself thought, and that was winter last year. Here in France, we are the country of wine, okay? Cider, okay, but wine. Wine is the real beverage that the French are known for, okay? So it would be something to discover in old writings that wine manufacturers did exactly this with sorbs. And that's what I found out. I found out this twice, okay? I found out...
You found it in writing. That
in writing.
makers already knew this.
Exactly. There is a pharmacist. Do you say pharmacist?
Pharmacist. Yes. Yeah.
Who was interested. He lived in the countryside, in the Loire region, okay, where there are vineyards, okay, and he writes in 1830, 1830, he writes an article that I found out thanks to German articles. I first found out the German articles and then the French one. He writes that he does cure wine who already started to go wrong. Okay, what happens? They do white wine in this region. Not only white wine, but white wine. Red wine is less prone to problems like this because there are tannins inside, and tannins are also a bacterial killer. Okay, but white wine, they are pressed without the skin to be white. Okay, and so there are less tannins and they are more prone to problems. And this pharmacist writes in the year 1830 that he did some research with green corms, green sorbs.
There we go, back to the green.
That he put into the barrels of last year. So to cure wine who already has some problem.
Cure wine. That sounds even different. That's a whole other level.
It's more or less the same idea, but it's not the same procedure.
Not the same, but if it's curing wine, that's different from stopping the wine going
from
to
protecting.
Ill.
Exactly. So he writes, it works like a charm. It doesn't affect neither color, nor taste, nor odor of the wine. You have a wine that is as good as if it had never had problems. Only because and the procedure is. He did solve the problem of the juice going to jelly because of the pectins by using wine of last year fermented during the winter, and by putting green sorbs at the end of August into these barrels.
The wine.
So he wrote on. He didn't even press. He crunched the sorbs, put in the barrel.
Mix it around.
Mix it very good. Leave for 15 days, 2 weeks, maybe 1 month, and then you can take the wine.
It out.
Take the wine, and it's as good as as fresh. No problem of color, taste, or odor.
Miracle fruit.
It's a miracle. It's a miracle. Heiko Fischer in Germany doesn't know what goes on, but he knows it works, so he does it that way. Okay. The French pharmacist, I don't believe that he invented this. I really don't believe. I believe that he looked at what people already did, but he was the only one to write with okay, they were high-end people. They could not say, okay, I looked at what peasants do, who don't even can write, understand French. Okay, so he took the idea. I'm sure he took the idea from what the peasants did, and he looked at and he developed it. Okay, I have the writing. It was published in a horticultural in a pharmacist review, 1830. Okay. Second clue. There is a man, botanist,
A botanist.
Botanist.
Yes.
Who was doing a travel in central France, 1899, okay, and who wrote only two lines. He writes, yes, people here are interested by unripe sorbs they put into wine to improve. Okay.
There it was.
He doesn't.
For whatever reason.
He had no time to look at exactly what they did, but he writes this in 1899. So this is a little bit more than 100 years ago.
Yeah.
and countryside in France was still very
There was no war. Well, 100 years ago there was, but yeah.
very lost, huh?
Yeah.
Lost places, and a French pharmacist who wrote lots of things about cider in a newspaper named Le Cidre et le Poiré. Okay, heard about this from the Germans. Because he did look at what the Germans do and Apfelwein, okay? And he heard exactly, and he describes exactly what Heiko Fischer told me. So that they put, that when they put this juice of unripe sorbs into already half fermented apple juice, it restarts fermentation.
Wow.
He heard exactly the same thing, and this is 1887, something like this. 1886 maybe. No?
1887?
1887, yeah, so 130, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, and because he's a pharmacist, he tries to give. He's astonished, huh? Why does this happen?
This doing this?
And he tries to give an explanation, but I'm not sure that he's right with his explanation. It's about something with penicillium that are on the walls. Very
Not
very
necessarily
complicated.
related to the fruit.
Very complicated. But what is so interesting is that he did a series of articles, maybe 30 pages, and he wrote at that time that he heard about a book written by a Spanish botanist about Spanish wine growers who did exactly the same with Sorbus Domestica. Okay?
It's still there.
Put Sorbus Domestica juice into wine to improve.
Right.
Okay? I do not read Spanish. I would like to find the real text, the original text, because maybe there are more things than if it's...
you need somebody from Spain who's on this same path.
And accept that the book is given. I know exactly what book and the author of the book.
Okay.
He gave it in the article.
So you need somebody to work with you who could look at that
to
Spanish
look at
text.
that exactly, yes.
Okay.
And then I have another clue. Malzerbe. Malzerbe is a very big aristocrat who was also botanist. Malzerbe he was an avocat lawyer who tried to defend our king because before he was guillotined. Okay, so he was guillotined also, but he was also already old. Okay, he was maybe 70 years old, and when he was younger, he was passionate about botanists, and he made lots of travels through France. As an aristocrat, he had enough money. And I don't have either the original text. I think I can find it, but I have a citation. He cited in a modern book, and he writes that the French cider manufacturer in Normandy like to have sorb trees in their orchards because they put some sorb juice into the cider to improve. Okay.
Everybody needs a Sorbus Domestica tree in their orchard.
He doesn't know exactly why, because he had no time to ask about every detail.
Still a mystery.
But they like and. So apples are bigger, are easier to pick up, are easier to put in the cellar until they are pressed, etc. So why go and bother to pick up sorbs?
Little tiny sorbs.
Little tiny sorbs.
It had to be passed on.
So there is a reason.
There is a reason.
There is a
right.
reason.
Oh
okay,
my God.
there must be a reason. Okay,
there is a reason. You got that.
There must be a reason, and I think the reason is exactly the reason Heiko Fischer explained to me. And and because improve cider so that they do not pass away because of strange bacteria. Okay, that's the reason.
Okay.
I'm persuaded of this. And now we have a clue that it is done with wine in Spain in the 19th century, with wine in France at 2 places in France, and with cider, also with cider in Normandy and cider in Germany. Okay, all those people didn't even read. The people who did this, they couldn't read.
They wouldn't know that's going on.
So, but in all these places, no, I think. My hypothesis, my idea is that this is something that the Romans already did.
Well, that's what I was thinking, traditional herbalist, going back ages, they knew how to use all the different fruits.
Exactly, because and because there are maybe 5, 6, 7, 10, I don't know, texts describing those fruits from the Roman times, 2,000 years ago. 2,000, 2,200
So the
years
Romans,
ago.
you said Romans, not women.
No, the Romans, the Italians.
Well, I think the women
No,
the Romans, but anyways.
The Romans.
Okay.
I think my idea is that the Romans already knew how, because the wine was their main
drink.
Main drink. So they had also to try to protect it. Their wine from
and they're traveling with it. They're bringing it with them on.
Yeah, and because they conquered Europe.
They moved around the world.
Okay, maybe they brought. Okay, that's my idea. I'm not sure. I have no clue about this.
Yeah.
But because it was done in Spain, it was done in France, it was done in Germany, in Normandy, and the Romans were in all those places. Okay, but. Now,
that's why you need to have that text read, the Spanish text, to see
I will
because
try
there might
to
be
find
another link in another link.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also the original writing of Malesherbes, okay, which is a handwritten report of his travel in France. But I know the year. It's 1778. Okay, 1778, 1778. So it's even older. Okay.
Yeah.
So now we have in France lots of Sorbus Domestica trees which are planted everywhere. Who will not give lots of fruits in the beginning because they are young trees. But you don't need lots of fruits for this application because it's 1% Sorb juice to protect.
Really,
okay?
And a natural protection.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Exactly.
God, that could blow the natural wine world out of the.
And you have your Sorb, so you have you have enough Sorbus Domestica in Goldridge Farm in Sonoma County.
In California.
You have enough maybe to protect thousands of liters of natural wines and natural cider of people who try to do this there. Okay. We have some advance. The Germans have 40 years more advanced than you. We have 20 years, we are more 20, 30 years more advanced than you, but you have enough trees to do some experiments there.
Yes.
Okay. I believe that it will be extremely difficult to put Sorb juice to remove contains sulfites, okay, by contains Sorb juice. Okay, it will be extremely difficult because in wine you only can put vine grapes, okay, and in cider there is a law you can only put apples, and in poiré you can only put pears. Okay, if you put a little bit of something else for another fruit, then it cannot be named wine. It can no cider, no poiré. Okay, but maybe you in California don't have this problem. Maybe you can still say you sell cider if there is a little bit. And now you understand why I look at tilted shed posts. Okay,
Yes,
tilted shed.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Because she tried 2 or 3 years ago to do Spierling Apfelwein, okay? But she didn't know exactly what it is, Spierling Apfelwein. Now, if she listens at this, she might know.
Yeah,
Now,
that's great.
That's
Ellen Cavalli.
Ellen, exactly. Maybe she could be interested to try something with these informations. Now, one mystery. Still, okay? You remember that Heiko Fischer has to put some enzymes into the juice that he pressed end of August so that it does not transform into jelly, okay? And this is chemical. Huh? And if you tell this to people who do natural wine, they don't like the idea, okay? No? I found another old writing in Gothic letters, okay, which gives the procedure of the 19th century in Frankfurt, okay? So I know how they did, and they did it the way I will now try to explain. Okay. They go and pick up the sorbs at the end of second half of August, okay? And then they crunch the sorbs and put in a barrel. They don't press, they only crunch the sorbs. Because it's full of, I think, sorbic acid and tannins, it doesn't turn, it doesn't ferment, it stays like this until it's they only crunch, okay? Crunch. Wow. You have a mass crunched green Sorbus Domestica fruits in a barrel from
and they don't rot. Are you saying that they don't rot?
They don't rot because there are enough tannins and maybe sorbic acid in there so that they stay like this.
Just stay at a constant. When they're green. When they're green. That's important. That's the key.
And then the key, you can keep your crunched green sorbs like this in the barrel until November when you ferment your apple wine. Then you press your crunched Sorbus Domestica fruits, and you put the juice into the apple fermenting juice or pear fermenting juice. So this was how they did it. And even Heiko Fischer, who does it for 25 years, didn't know. I found the text in the old German literature. So I immediately forwarded, of course. He was extremely interested. And he told me, yes, something to try, of course. Something to try. So I will contact him this year. Maybe I hope it works. Okay, it was described in the 1880s. So why wouldn't it work today?
Somebody took the time to write that down. So wow.
The problem for you, English speakers, is that I don't know why the Romans never brought Sorbus Domestica trees to Britain. To Great Britain, to the islands. I don't know why.
Maybe it wouldn't grow there. Oh.
Maybe the climate was not good. Okay?
Maybe they did try to grow it and it just didn't take.
Yeah, maybe because they like dry and they like dry and hot. The drier and they thrive. We had 3 years very dry and very hot in the region of Paris. Three summers, very dry, very hot. I was astonished at how much they grew those trees. I knew.
Oh, really?
Huh?
They were very happy.
They are very happy.
Okay, they're going to like climate change, I guess.
Last year it was hot twice in June. One week of 40 degrees Celsius, and then again in August. And those trees made huge amounts of fruits, incredible.
Indeed, they are absolutely incredible, and so is Arnould Nazarian from Paris. Look, this conversation went on. I cut out a big section, which actually he got even deeper into cider and how Sorbus Domestica, the fruit, is used as a substitute for sulfite, and how it also helps ciders and wines when, quote unquote, are ill, get them back on track, which is pretty amazing considering it's not just Arnold saying this, but he's done the research, he's found the paperwork, and he even wrote to the cider gorilla. You might know Edu. He's based in Asturias. He's like a cider merchant who has also lived in Germany. And when I saw Edu also at Cidrexpo, he was like, yeah, we know about that. But Arnold is the first one to actually share it broadly, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? So I think he's hoping that Edu will read some Spanish notes on this particular attributes, and the Sorbus Domestica Society will keep on furthering the education for all of us on this just amazing tree. And it's a palm. I just freaking love that. It is a palm. And yes, I have some seeds that were germinated, and I am growing Sorbus Domestica too. Fingers crossed. I even have a t-shirt out now on the Cider Chat Tea Public website, and it says Sorbus Domestica, a palm tree that has been socially distancing for over 1,000 years. I love, it's like the antisocial of trees. Like, don't touch me. Give me some space. Give me some room. It just goes on and on. It's one of those kind of like miracle trees. And, man, fun stuff. The palms just keep on bringing us out into the sunlight. And that's exactly where we need to be right now. Remember, if you want to get that extended version of this chat with Arnold, become a patron of Cider Chat. It's pretty easy to do. Just Google the Patreon page. That's spelled Patreon, Cider Chat, and you'll find a link right there, and a whole bunch of extra audio clips from the course of the past 5 years that I've been posting up there. And it's just a really nice way to support this podcast so I could keep on producing for you with these stories and knowledge bombs from around the world. In the meanwhile, I'm going to roll out of here and get outside and probably check into those Sorbus Domestica that I have going on. If you want to take a little peek on what I've been doing with them, go to the show notes for this here episode 219 at ciderchat.com. This is Real Wind Caller signing off for now. Looking forward to seeing you in Ciderville.
We like cider, we like palms, we love orchards and having fun. There is a reason why we do it like this. Oh yes there is. There is a reason why we do it like this. Oh yes there is. There is a reason why we drink it like this. Oh yes there is a reason. We like walking through the orchards, dancing in the streets, smelling all the blossoms, kicking up our feet. We like cider, we like palms, we like orchards, having some fun. There is a reason why we do it like this. Oh yes there is. There is a reason why we do it like this. Oh yes there is. There is a reason why we drink it like this. Oh yes there is. There is a reason. We like walking through the orchards, dancing in the streets, smelling all the blossoms, kicking up our feet. Oh yeah. We like cider. Oh yes we do. We like palms. Oh yes we do. We love orchards, having some fun.
There is a reason why we do it like this.
Ba-da-da-dum.
There's a reason why we do it like this.
Ba-da-da-dum.
There is a reason why we drink it like this.
Ba-da-da-dum. Ba-da-da-dum. We like walking down the orchards, dancing in the streets, smelling all the blossoms, kicking up our feet. Oh yeah.
We like cider.
Ba-da-da-dum.
We like Pommes.
Oh yes we do.
We like orchards, having some fun.
Yeehaw!